Hello, Guardians. It is Ebontis here. I don't want to cover the Destiny 2 2020 Director's Cut. This is for February 20... I think it dropped February 26th. So, Luke Smith previously had done these for kind of a look back at the year of Forsaken. And that was probably over the summer. He dropped like 3 really long articles talking about stuff they want to work on in the future, what they had learned, and kind of the reason they're making certain decisions with regards to Destiny. There are some big shifts that happen in this game. And at this point, he's actually looking out towards year 4, which is somewhere in September. More seasons potentially coming then with a big expansion. They're still going to be on that similar cadence, but some things are definitely going to be changing. Some major shifts in just game development mentality that they're going to have. Some things players are going to like, some things people are going to have a tough time swallowing. So let's get into this thing. And also, just so you guys know, we are recording the Last Word podcast tonight. So this is February 27th. It's going to be at 10:30 Eastern on twitch.tv/Ebontis. So if you guys want to listen to the podcast, join in live. It is going to be a late one. Video and audio will be up later, so you guys can catch the archives, of course. But if you want to tune in live, it will be tonight. So if you guys are, say, maybe West Coast or it's not quite as late, definitely tune in. We'll be a late podcast because we'll have the 12 by then. We have trials to talk about in this director's cut, so lots to discuss. So join us tonight, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, twitch.tv/Ebontis. All right, let's dive into this thing. As I go through this thing, I'm just going to have an image on screen, so if you just want to listen, that is totally fine. Not really a whole lot to look at gameplay-wise or anything. It's mostly just a discussion. One thing I do want to mention, though, some of it I will read straight up verbatim, just because there's some words I want you to hear from him. Some of it I'm just going to summarize, just so you guys get the general recap, because there's a lot of stuff here. Now, a lot of this is going to be looking forward, so looking into things like year 4, kind of seeing where they're going to be going. There's some big shifts and ideas they want to work towards. Some of it is a little bit of retrospective, looking back at what they've learned, you know, over the course of even Shadowkeep, Season of the Undying, Season of Dawn, and a little bit from the previous end of seasons. For their vision of Destiny, they still want it to be an action MMO, a single evolving world that you can play anywhere, anytime, with your friends. They still want that. It's a game they want to keep building on, but they want to do so with a creative and work-life balance sustainability for their developers and the staff at Bungie. There's only so much someone should be able to do in a week. Now, some studios are going to work their employees to the death. Not literally, but they're going to work them for 80, 90 hours, put them in crunch. You should be sleeping in your office. I mean, some of those are extreme. And Bungie, to a point, they've even stated they went through that in the Halo days, and they do not want to do that anymore. They want to step away. They want to take care of their employees. Inside, that means some things are just going to take longer. That is how some of this goes. Picture yourself in their shoes and just remember, hey, this fix isn't coming as quickly as I would like. Some things come quick. This is a very complicated game. Some things come slowly. And again, there's just a balance of what it takes to have this done. The game is so intertwined, the testing and the time that they have to, they can't just usually go flip a switch. There's usually just a lot more involved. So when it comes to the balance of work-life sustainability, remember that when you guys are wondering why things take so long or why is this other thing doing this, it's because they want to take care of the people who work there as well. They want to build an amazing game, but they don't want to kill their employees to do it. They also had a lot more help previously. They were with Activision. They had that behind them. They had a couple other studios during Forsaken helping with full expansions that were being developed with help from outside the studios. Like a whole studio is helping develop one whole expansion. Another studio is out here developing another, building raids and things of that. So they had a lot of help before, and it's one thing that they don't have now. Now, it is nice to see Luke say he's gone from the mentality of will Bungie survive, after they're now an independent studio publishing their own game, to where can Destiny go and how can we get there? That's kind of a cool shift in mentality. Also shows his, belief that the studio is doing well, has a good future, financially independent. Lots of good things there to show that is something they want to stick to. Now, his big thing, he states, he's like, when I came back from holiday this year, something about Destiny felt off. Season 9 is, to me, he thinks the best winter season we've done in Destiny 2. There was a lot of cool stuff in here. The narrative, Dawning, you had Saint 14 coming back, the interactions with Trials, the couple cool quests, some narrative going, lots of cool things. Honestly, not for probably everybody, but some very cool pieces to it. Sundial was definitely better than Vex Offensive, all steps in good directions. But he said something felt like it was missing, and this is what he wants to work on going into 2020 and 2021. And he basically states aspiration. Puts a little number in a definition. A hope or ambition of something. Now, from, it might have been Dato's video or something, currently players may, especially this season, has felt kind of off or not quite there. There's a lot of stuff to do, but not a lot of it feels like it's got weight or it matters or a lot. I mean, that's something that myself I've experienced at certain points. I know quite a few people have taken breaks here. This doesn't really matter. Do I need to level up because pinnacles? Lots of weird stuff going on in that nature. So we know everybody who plays this game is going to be different. And these are my words, by the way, right now. You, me, Luke, everybody who plays this game is going to have a different way. And this he does state. I'm not so naive as to think that we can make something that matters to everyone. We all have different values, goals, and time. But I do think Destiny 2 can do a better job of enabling players' short, medium, and long-term goals to work for. The casual player who just wants to play through, jump on, do a couple strikes, slowly work on leveling up their battle pass, and maybe work on finishing one or two of the, ritual weapons, cool. Somebody else may be working on with a friend. They do it like 3 or 4 hours a night. They try in 2-man raids or they solo content. I've done that myself. Everybody has a different amount of time to play this game. People have different things they want to work towards. And they also have different values of what's important in a game to them. What do they want to aspire for? Me, I want to solo Nightfalls because that's a cool thing to do. Some people definitely want to be able to 2-man a raid and show that they can do that. Some people are going to try and do a raid the fastest. Some people want to go into a Crucible match and just not beat the bottom. Aspiration is different for different people, but the game still needs more things to aspire towards because right now, especially is a prime example, we have a slot machine in the tower for weapon rolls, and that just doesn't feel the greatest when you're going through, oh cool, I turned in all these bounties, I got this glimmer, and I bought all these bounties, turned in the Fractaline, and I got a lot of god rolls, but how did I do that? I literally just sat in the tower. It's not the best feeling, not as much going through for it, so that's one of those things. Generally, the aspiration is something they want to work towards changing. Now, we know Trials is coming, so PvP is going to have its own piece to it, but also, on the other side, there's Grandmaster Nightfalls, which again, aspiration is one thing, but you can't make something just so difficult, you can aspire to beat it, but it just sucks to try and do it. There's a balance of, not fun and aspiration to learn and do things. Things are capable to be learned, but if it's just punishing, it's not fun for most people. So, first thing he talks about is seasons. Now, some of these are longer pieces I do want to read. With a few seasons under our belt since Shadowkeep, we're well underway with internal discussions around how we feel about them. We look at these iterations through a bunch of lenses. First, there's the soft smushy, how do we feel about the seasons? These feelings are mined from our own experiences within the studio, and from ongoing roll-ups of information from our community. We also look at how well seasons are engaging our players. Are people coming back each week? How long are they playing? What do we look like month over month? And how does it perform against historical data? Then we start to talk about where to take seasons in year 4. Looking back, there's some good stuff that we've done, and there are some things we need to work on. Positive points, he mentioned specifically the seasonal narratives connecting to each other. Honestly, it's been kind of cool. The seasons of what's happening, going into what happens next. We don't know what happens with Osiris and now Rasputin, but we got that tease. Something may be happening there in PvE. Osiris and Saint 14. Saint 14 is now going to be running Trials of Osiris. Those are cool things. The quests to get him have been pretty cool. Those pieces they have done. The quests for Season of Dawn, those have been pretty expansive, saving Saint 14, going through time over a couple weeks, going through the corridors of time. They've done some cool things for sure in both the narrative department and also just the character development. I've enjoyed both of those. He said they also enjoyed the simplicity of leveling up the battle pass. It is just a nice addition. It's just another thing, part of each season, as you play through. Whether it's just a night you want to be hey, I want to play some Crucible tonight. Cool, I got 2 levels in my battle pass, literally just for doing what I wanted to do in the game. Now, they said they don't think they've got the experience thing figured out, going into lost sectors and farming bounties. It's not really what they're going for, so that one they still got to work on. But the battle pass itself, just leveling up, getting cosmetics, a little bit of progression as you go through. Hey, there's some ornaments in here and cool stuff and some currencies that you're going to need as you play through. That's a good thing. Do I think it's perfect? No. Could it use some tweaks? Yes. But they say the general idea of just an addition to the game, I think that's positive, and I think I can agree with that. He even states for his own play patterns, he says he feels the need each season to get all of the past universal ornaments and the title. I like knowing these cosmetics and uniques won't be offered again. However, I find myself personally less motivated to try and get awesome rolls for new weapons, which is especially strange considering I like having a nice version of each gun in Destiny. This is legitimate, and this is where we'll get into a section later, but it goes into a little interlude about weapons. I'm going to read it verbatim, but we'll talk about the weapon stuff when we actually get to that section. He says, I really like playing this game. I've acquired almost every weapon in the game. Why Anarchy? Basically saying he's still missing that one. So if you are missing it too, it's fair. I have some pretty slick rolls on a few of them, and near-miss internet-approved god rolls on others. Spare rations rapid hit kill clip with full bore, but of course he's disappointed with alloy mag. Like many of you, I end up gravitating to a few weapons and just using them instead of everything else. Sure, the outlaw multi-kill clip breachlight I farmed for Season of Dawn is nice to have, and I love the art for Season of Dawn weapon set. But is it really going to displace my go-to PvE kinetic? Probably not, and I know that. I recently sat with a couple of external folks who really love Breakneck. It's the only thing they use. They aren't ever going to use another primary in Destiny 2. Why? Because they don't need to. Part of aspiration is the pursuit that comes with it, and right now, the way we are and have been treating weapons in Destiny 2 isn't actually fueling the aspiration engine. Back to season. So keep that in mind. That's going to be a big point. And that's probably the most controversial thing in this whole thing. So talking about seasons, he says we aren't delivering the feeling of an evolving world. We have events and activities and rewards that will go away. The cool thing about the annual pass, like if I stopped playing for a season, he says if I came back, there was a bunch of stuff to do. Now they are trying to make memories. They are trying to make moments that matter when you play through the game, but also balancing the fear of missing out. Having cool activities like bringing back Saint 14 this season has been really cool. But if you don't get to go experience those quests of saving Saint 14 on your own if you come back in Season 10, that's kind of unfortunate because those are really cool. Those are cool missions. We like to see what he went through. You see him in the past, you see him in the future. Those are kind of cool events. So it's a tricky balance of the elements of both trying to create memories, but balancing fear of missing out. They want to make an evolving world, but also make sure things don't go away. Those tend to clash, is the idea. So they said this year's versions of seasons have too much fear of missing out. They just straight up do. They're too confined in their little pockets of 3 months, and then it's just gone. Like the invasions on the moon with Vex, yeah, they probably don't fit with the lore, but they were cool. They're gone. They want to fix this with next year's seasons. We'll have less fear of missing out. So that's a nice thing to hear. And here's another piece, and this is where I want to read again his words. Because we aren't spending our development resources and time as well as we could, we're talking about moving away from creating season bespoke private activities and instead using that time and effort to build themes that aren't just represented by a marquee event that will fade away, but rather to inject these seasonal themes into more of the game. Like we continue to evolve the world's narrative, we can invest more of the evolving world of our public spaces and take further efforts to evolve Destiny 2's core activities. You're wondering what he means by core activities. It's your general repeatable activities that are match made, be it strikes. You can go to Escalation Protocol on planets. You can do Crucible matches, which is always going to be a different experience. Gambit is out there as well. You've got your raids. You have your general activities that you can repeat, and you're going to get experience that you can learn, get better at, and do them a lot. But on the other side, you have things like quests and campaigns that are generally not, as they call, quote, evergreen. They're not something you're going to go play 6 times over. You play a campaign, most people don't want to go play a story game 6 times because you have the idea what's going to happen there. You want something that's going to get you rewards, get you experience, get you currencies. You want something repeatable that's fun and not boring and just so sedentary it's the same thing, but you want to make sure you're getting something from it. If you're going through the campaign, that's not generally going to be earning you a lot of stuff. That's working on progressing the story forward. They've shifted somewhat away from the campaign-specific stuff and tried to kind of have this ever-evolving story. And again, this is the balance they're working on in those seasons. Right now, seasonal activities like Sundial compete with our core activities. They have new rewards, and they award players powerful gear, but they don't provide a bunch of experience, as especially people find the Season Pass and the Artifact quite important. But on the other side, core activities provide a bunch of experience. You've got a lot of bounties you can do. You can do repeatable bounties. So, but also on the other side of that, if you get the same piece of armor or the same weapon that you've already got 70 times over, that's not that fun either. So it's hard right now for them to find a way to balance of what they want the players to do, or it's hard for a player to log in and know Do I go do the Sundial because I want the weapons for the season because they're going to be gone? Or do I go pick up a bunch of bounties and sit in the strike playlist and repeat that over and over because strikes are cool and it's going to get me drops and it's going to get me experience so I can level up my artifact and season pass, but I can't really do both. So they're having an issue balancing those two, and it's not an easy thing because they want to make sure people still go play strikes and have incentive to do that, but also the new activities, those are kind of cool. Basically, what they're considering is trying to take things like the armor sets and the Sundial weapons and putting those into more of your core activities. Like at the end of Crucible matches, you have a chance at some specific Sundial weapons this season. At the end of strikes, when you finish those, you have a chance at you guaranteed get a Sundial weapon or a Timelost weapon that drops in strikes. There's a lot of random rolls, so you could run strikes all the time and never get them. And some people may not like that. Maybe it's all the weapons are in those activities as well. If I go do strikes and work on bounties, and maybe every other match I get a chance at a Sundial weapon dropping. So I can work on some experience, I can go do some strikes with friends, I can play Crucible matches, but I can also get some of the specific seasonal things, even though I'm just playing PvP matches. And that is honestly something that probably should happen. If there are seasonal activities and there are seasonal weapons, seasonal armor sets, some of that stuff should be dropping in other places in the game to make that season really feel like it envelops the whole game and not this one little bubble on the director. If you go play Gambit, Strikes, Crucible matches, raids are specific, those are a little different, but there's a lot of activities, just world drops in general. Some of those seasonal specific items should be a little more spread out so you can go enjoy the game and still get some of those seasonal things. Would make things a little more well-rounded. They said they could also invest more time on their quest lines. Right now, Sundial makes basically the entire thing. They spend resources, time, you're making the event, the activity, and then 3 months the Sundial's gone. The Sundial's a cool activity. You've got 3 different boss rooms. You got the Innotam boss fight. You've got the spinning thing in the middle, which I don't even know what it took to animate. All of that stuff is stuff they would like to see maybe last a little bit longer. Maybe not the Sundial activity, maybe the activity fades, but the Save the Legend quest for Saint 14, maybe that doesn't go away until the next September expansion when they do a giant game shifting thing. That's legit. So that actually sounds cool. All of that stuff seems pretty positive. And that's, I think, things where they would like to get to, but it's, again, they're working with the resources they have within their studio, not killing their staff, but giving us a cool experience. And it's just they're trying to make these little seasons, but again, the long-lasting effect or the general full game experience, it's kind of been a little confined to its little pocket and they're trying to spread it out. Said they've built a world where players can encounter others, but we haven't made a world where fights with challenging enemies where you would feel like other players matter. Something I've always wondered when it comes to the public places of any planet, Mars, EDZ, Nessus, there are public events, but you can almost solo every heroic public event, albeit for like one, basically just due to sightlines. But most of them you can nearly solo. So you don't need anyone else in that world that you could bump into a cool player to experience most things. Now, Escalation Protocol was a cool thing, but just the matchmaking situation on that wasn't the best. But there would be a nice thing, and this is from, World of Warcraft's an example, but anything where there's like a world boss. Say, on Saturday at noon, on Nessus, you knew this boss was going to appear. Everyone and their other brother's mother is going to be right there, waiting for that thing to appear, to land, and if you tried to fight it by yourself, you would get just destroyed. But if, groups of 9 people can work together, keep each other rezzing them up, and then you're respawning and coming back, and it's this long fight, and it's a cool drop, and maybe there's those are once or twice a week, these world bosses that drop. That would be something where you're out in the world and it matters. I've always wished the Flashpoint would make that planet, whatever the Flashpoint is of the week, harder. Lost sectors get cranked up. Enemies in the world are cool. There's a few more bounties at each one of the vendors, where if you pick those up, they're a little harder to do, but they're more rewarding. That type of stuff would be a way to evolve the stuff that we have, using the planets that we've got, but to give them new life. And there's another piece that touches on giving new life later, but that's a different idea. The next big topic is weapons. Now, weapons, forever, the problem is the title of this thing. Now, I can tell you right now, this is going to be controversial. We talked about this on the Last Word podcast, and it was definitely not a fan of everybody's opinion. I put a Twitter poll out there. I've seen comments on that. It's not going to go over well with everybody. I can tell you now. I'm a fan of this, just because I've been through games where I put time into things and then a new expansion comes out and all that stuff you just had, it's gone. Generally what's going to happen here, but let me tell you what he's saying. Currently, weapons in Destiny 2, the way they basically have worked in Destiny, every weapon you get from Destiny 2 Vanilla can keep being infused and raising its power level indefinitely. In Destiny, with infusion, it's like having every card you own in Magic available and playable in all formats forever. It basically, he says, it passively creates power creep, an ongoing Destiny problem, which also means our teams need to spend more and more of their time retesting and supporting old stuff instead of making new stuff. It reduces player desire for new items, and it means we ultimately create a ton of gear that doesn't have any value beyond ticking the box on I got it checklists. And that's true for the ritual weapons for sure sometimes, like I got it, but do I really use it? No, can't say the last time I used my Komodo. That isn't value. It's actually the opposite value because it's work we could be putting into making new stuff or improving old stuff, so they feel like they're wasting time. Our combat team works extremely hard to make new weapons, and this is 100% true, by the way. This is key. Each legendary and mini blues get their own flavors and special sauce. Sometimes it's the way a gun sounds. The first time in Destiny 2 I picked up a Scathlock, I don't know why, just the sound of that gun still sticks in my head as a weapon that just, it sounded exactly like I thought it should. It was just, it fit. I don't know why, I always liked that one. Kind of had a good feel, had a little bit military to it, but not too much, not too futuristic. It fit. And that was one of those things for me. Just the sound of that weapon always sticks, for whatever reason. Sometimes it's the insanely over-budget range stat. Hand in hand, I don't know quite what the mention is here. I guess I'd have to check. Sometimes it's the recoil pattern. Shout out to Fallout Plays and all his shotgun recoil. RNG is out there. Sometimes it's the art. Bastion, this season's exotic, the kinetic fusion rifle with the 3-shot pulse. That weapon is gorgeous. It is so well designed and so well done. So cool. Sometimes it's something indescribable, just makes an item resonate with our players. In an action game like Destiny, our weapons are feel-based extensions of the character. It's like I've played MMOs and I've played World of Warcraft, and this is the 100% truth. I get amazing weapons that make my character really strong, but I rarely feel like I'm attached to that weapon. Now, he says in action games like Dark Souls and Sekiro, the weapons become a feel-based extension of my character rather than a stat stick. Basically just something that like pokes things but has good stats, like in Diablo, for example. I'm never really attached to a specific bow for, a ranger class. I just want the bow with the best stats. It's not going to look or feel any different. It's just going to do the most damage for me. And then he basically states, he's like, remember when he basically says the collision between an action game and an RPG? Couple that with our theme of aspiration, and I believe we're approaching an inflection point for weapons and infusion in Destiny 2. We made a lot of magic cards. We want you to keep the ones you love in your collection, as opposed to taking them and throwing them all away and having the tower get destroyed again. And a bunch of those magic cards could be playable around the world while free roaming or in PvP formats. But where power matters, aspirational activities are involved, we're going to make some changes to legendary weapons. And this is where it's going to be. There was a lot of learning to do when Destiny 2 launched in 2014, but there's some real good stuff in that game. And this is something some of you may not have experienced if you're a newer player. The weapon from Vault of Glass, which is the very first raid, could be powerful, unique, and rare. If you had a Fatebringer, which was a hand cannon, basically it had Firefly, it was arc, and it was one of the best guns in the game for a long time, but it came from the raid, it was aspirational, it was cool, it was hard to get. He's like, the amount of times you saw other people get it, or the reward you didn't quite see, because those guns were unique and the game gave them space to be different, gave them space to be awesome. It's hard to cleave out that space in the current version of Destiny 2. Weapons that are supposed to come from pinnacle activities like raids or trials don't really have the space to breathe. The answer can't be just make them better, because that approach ends up with the Reckoning situation he described out last year. In case you didn't read it last year, Guardians had become so powerful between stacking buffs and weapon damage and all of our abilities and multiple things and exotics all working together, that the activity that they had built for us had to be so difficult that basically, unless you ran it a very specific way with certain weapons, certain buffs, certain exotics to go with your class, you were probably going to die. But on the other side, if they didn't make it challenging, we would be just stomping all over it. That's the situation Basically, power creep had gotten too high, and towards Season of Opulence and into Shadowkeep, they have brought some of that stuff back down to be a little bit more in check so they can build more interesting encounters without us having to be just like in god tier status to fight them. We had legendary weapon, we had pinnacle weapons, which Recluse was completely out in check. But they spend time developing each one of these things, and if weapons don't have a space to breathe, it gets difficult. I'm going to tell you guys right now, the weapon pool is pretty saturated. Say no to Rage. He's said that, like, you know, if you have 10 hand cannons, how many do you really need? You have one that feels good in PvP. All 10 weapons may have good god rolls, but if there's one you like, you don't need anything else. If you have one pulse rifle, like my Go Figure in PvE, do I really need many other weapons in that kinetic slot? If it's got Outlaw, Rampage, feels good for me, it's got some decent range, and it's kinetic, I'm good to go. I don't need many other weapons, so even if a really cool weapon gets built, like the Steel Feather Repeater, this season, has potential, feels kind of cool, pumps out a lot of damage, you can get Feeding Frenzy and multi-kill clip. It's not going to be quite as far as a pulse, but that thing may be really good. But if it's just not something that, like, I get stuck with, and it's like I've got my teeth sunk into my Go Figure because I've used it so long, I'm likely not to give other things a chance. Now I move my energy weapons around because there's always different shields, but kinetics especially, people tend to get attached to kinetics. They just do. Or things like Izanagi's take that over and you've got other stuff, but all of those things. So he said the Vault of Glass weapons could be more memorable because they knew they weren't going to be in an ecosystem for things like Trials, Nightfalls, and Raids forever. They'd naturally fall by the wayside because power, attack, or light in those days would make them obsolete. In the world we're imagining, we'll have the space at the top to create powerful legendary weapons. Legendaries are just better. Legendaries that are just better than other items in that classification. We'll be able to do that because the design space for weapons will expand and contract over time. Items will enter the ecosystem and be able to be infused for some number of seasons, and beyond that, their power won't be able to be raised. Our hope is that instead of having to account for weapon viability forever when we create one, it can be easier to let something be powerful in the ecosystem, and those potent weapons entering the ecosystem mean there's more fun and stuff to pursue. Changes like this also mean legendary weapons and their talents could be shelved and could be reissued at a future date. Simplest version of this is as follows. Legendary weapons will have fixed values for how high they can be infused. Those values will project that weapon's viable end-game lifespan, and we think that lifespan is somewhere between 9 and 15 months. One final note. We are not applying this to exotics at this time. We want to iterate on the legendary ecosystem first. So the general idea is my Go Figure from Forsaken, at some point, maybe coming up in year 4, it's going to be way too old, there's going to be a time limit or a power limit that thing will never be able to get above. If I want to go run around in a basic PvP match, potentially I could still use it. And that is going to make some things balancing for them difficult, keeping things around in basic stuff. But if you go aspirational activities, newer Nightfalls, raids, the next season's expansion, everything's probably about to get a lot higher. There is a point where the weapons that I've had for years are no longer going to be viable in higher level difficult content, be it Trials for PvP. If Gambit ever evolves, we don't know. Higher level strikes like Nightfalls, the Ordeal, and stuff like that. There is going to be a point, and that's what they're saying, legendary weapons are not going to keep carrying forward. You're not always going to be able to infuse. Now, some people are absolutely going to hate this. Some people are going to be okay with it. I'm on the okay side because I've played games. Again, he mentioned I think Luke has played World of Warcraft as well. And don't throw that one game in there. But my question for all of you, and this is just what I want to have you all think about. Midnight Coup from the Leviathan raid is still a gun some people use. And it is 3 years old. After a while, all of these other weapons in the game need a chance to be cool too. Now, is it because that weapon is just good? Yes, it's actually a good weapon. It's got good perks. It's got Outlaw. It's got Rampage. It's just a good feeling hand cannon. It's got some decent range on it too. There are other guns out there that are also good, but if you've been playing this thing for a long time and you have no reason to put it down ever, whether you're forced or it just can't carry into that powerful activity, there's no general incentive to try other things. Now, some people probably think I'm crazy and be like, hey, I finally got this god roll to drop and you're going to take it away. I've seen that all over Twitter as well. And I empathize. Trust me, my Go Figure came early. I still don't have a good Blast Furnace, hence one of the reasons I'm using my Go Figure. There's a Blast Furnace roll that would be amazing. It's Feeding Frenzy and Rampage, and that thing's got more range than my Go Figure and is just like a laser beam. Blast Furnace will outshoot me, but my Go Figure is still good. But generally, if it's just like, hey, like a year and a half later, your old stuff is not carrying forward, I've got to look into a new pulse rifle. I've got to get a feel for a new weapon. Maybe it's going to switch up play types. It is a way for them, and it's also at a point now, we have so many weapons, and if it just keeps going, there's only so many iterations on these things they can use. There's only so many perks you can develop. Now, there's a lot of perks you can make, but there's only so much variation in weapons, be it firing styles, animation speeds, and stuff like that, until things start to get kind of retired and used for just like basic stuff, that newer things for higher level activities can actually be appealing to the broad audience. It's not going to be a pill a lot of people want to swallow. Some people are going to just like groan and be angry about this one. I am more okay with this one because I think it's going to help keep the game fresh for longer, which is an important thing for the longevity of Destiny. So some are going to hate this. There's going to be comments and descriptions and Twitters, and this is going to be going on for a while. But it is one of those things I think in the long term will help keep the freshness of the game and the general, like the evolution. And now the expectation is going to be out there 6 months in advance. Hey, if the stuff I'm getting in Season of Dawn now is not going to apply in December, I know that. And at least I'm aware, come December, some of these things that I've got, you know, when I'm playing in whatever September's big expansion will be, I'm going to be paying attention, maybe playing more, looking for new weapons that I know are going to last me at least for, 6-9 months to a year before that next expansion refreshes the whole game again. The final piece he touches on is Cosmic Gardens. And he basically states, it's frequently seemed like Destiny was treading water in terms of moving the world's narrative forward. We want to tackle this in Destiny 2's third year. The idea of building a narrative that is moving the story of your Guardians, plural, all of you, forward, creating a universe where permanent change is possible and where players can have meaningful impact, is something that we're chasing and experimenting with. We've said before that Destiny 2 cannot keep growing indefinitely. There are lots of reasons as to why this is true, some technical, some creative, because the story wants to push into new areas. On the technical side, some of the sustainability as new areas, features, and event types are added to the Destiny, the problems of maintenance grow accordingly for the team. New changes to the system have to be checked against all old and new content. That introduces risk and a big burden on our teams to maintain that legacy content. In practical terms, it also prevents us from responding to players who have problems as quickly as we would like. They might be building content for Season of the Worthy now, and they're testing all of that, but if there's something wrong currently, the tester who needs to go test this to see if the fix they might have an idea for is good is busy doing other stuff. There's only so many people. At some point, there's a line where it's like, I can't do it all, something's got to give. And that's where they're saying, at some point, it cannot forever grow. Even World of Warcraft to a point, and I know this is a reference, but it's just a big ongoing game that's been alive for a while, so it's kind of an easy reference. They didn't continue making expansions, they rebuilt the world. Seasons can do some heavy lifting here, in the sense of giving players a sense of shared purpose and understanding of what they're working for. But when we ready expansions, it's a chance to make some more fundamental changes to the game world and its systems. We've done significant changes to all Destiny games every time we ship an expansion. And they have. We got Armor 2.0. We've got finishing moves. We've got bows. We've got random rolls. All these things have been expanded. And in Destiny 1, we had artifacts come in with Rise of Iron. We had Taking King. The whole quest thing was different. But now, they state, and this is where it's going to be the cool part, we're going to be making more changes to the game world as we go forward. And this is the idea. We've seen the pyramid ships. What if the pyramid ships crashed into the European Dead Zone and all the planets, and now there's pyramid ships everywhere, there's different enemy invasions, lost sectors look different, certain areas are covered by this darkness. You can change the way the world feels, and while you may be in the same space, it's got a completely different feel. And that's something that is going to allow them to continue to involve the world without always trying to grow the world. And that's one of those things that is a way for them to keep a living game like Destiny going for as long as they're hoping to keep it going. A couple other things he mentions toward the end. Faction rallies. Some people have been hoping they would return. He said they're not looking to bring them back. They are looking to take the faction rally armor and put that into the legendary engram loot pools in Season 10. So there's a chance to get some of that stuff. It looks pretty cool. They just said there wasn't that much engagement. They didn't ever find a really good way to use that one. Personally, if I had a thought, the way they handled the obelisks this season is something I think they could do with those vendors. Basically, and any vendor in the tower, honestly. You could give them like a system of leveling them up, whether it be bounties, whether it be doing Zavala gets you strikes, or, you know, certain ones maybe you put a boon on and you start to get just a little bonus towards that whatever character, and you level them up. You'll unlock a couple certain perks or a couple mods or things of that nature. You could have them that way, but the actual faction rally is like a community worldwide event. That one probably not coming back. If it is, it's not for a long time, and it's pretty low on the priority list, and I can agree with that. There's other things they could do. Bright engrams. You're no longer going to be able to just purchase a bright engram. Mainly, this is because loot boxes, laws around the world, especially in Europe, are pushing on loot boxes, and they just don't want to mess with it. So you'll get your bright engrams when you level up, still going to be there, your random exotic, and you can buy your exotics directly from Eververse, but purchasing bright engrams, it's going away. In Season 10, by the way, so pretty quick. New light, new intro. They've said new light. We had a lot of furry players come in, but also the experience for new light player from I've heard some people that have friends or loved ones that join the game. It's kind of a weird experience, and if you're doing that all on your own, it's a bit daunting. So they're working to improve the kind of onboarding potentially. Even like a Gambit tutorial, like, hey, you want to go play Gambit? Hey, here's a private mission. We're going to put you in this first and explain the mechanics. I'm not saying that's an easy thing to build and program, but it definitely would help a lot of new light players so they have a bit more of an idea what is going on. Finally, they say the quest log in Season 10 is going to get a rework. Quests are going to be automatically assigned to certain categories and buckets, like seasonal ones, older seasons, quests, bounties. Going to be a little different shift there, and honestly, the quest log could use some work, so I'm good seeing that. Very curious what they do with that. So all in all, I know this is a 40-minute talk from me. 100% not going to argue. But I think the things they're trying to do are all positive. Giving us a chance to have an evolving world is what's going to give this game life and freshness. If you take, you have the Leviathan sitting outside of Nessus, and it's a ship that can swallow a planet. Well, guess what? What if it swallowed the planet? Then you could potentially introduce another planet if capacity or there's technical size things to the game. Or as I said, the pyramid ships, they come crashing in. And the Outer Rim has different planets, like you've got Nessus and you've got Mars. Those are now have, pyramid invasions and stuff going on. There are ways they can change up the way the world looks, but still have some of the same planets in there, and that's going to help them evolve the world without, again, having it grow indefinitely, which they just can't do. And then they also said the seasons themselves changing and being less finite and in these little pockets of 3 months and then they fade away. I completely support that as well. I mean, I do like the new activity like a Sundial. I mean, the 6-person match made thing over and over and over and over is something I think everybody's probably going to be tired of by the time year 4 comes around, if that's the plan for these other 2 seasons. At some point, the 6-person match made activity of shooting stuff in the face and doing some basic stuff and getting some loot, we'd like to see something a little different. So if you go throw the weapons in other places in the game, I'm good with that too. Now, the one I know that is controversial is weapons. People enjoy their weapons, they get attached to them, I got my god roll, but in my mind, and I'm hoping at some point, some of you guys get on board with this, some of you guys may hate me for this, but 3 years down the road, I don't want to be using the same weapon, and if it takes something like this to do it, to push some of these out of my hand, that's what it's going to take. So, they're not messing with exotics, so those quests will still maintain, like Whisper and 0 Hour, and those exotics, they still have that unique feel. They can balance those, but keep them going. But the legendaries themselves, your auto rifles, your pulse rifles, your scouts, your snipers, your rocket launchers, should probably have kind of an expiration date. And I think that's going to give incentive to keep looking towards new stuff and not holding on to old things. And again, a lot of this seems to be towards keeping the game fresh as they continue to build and keep this game alive. Destiny has done something unique in helping keep a game alive for almost 6 years now. Not an easy thing to do to keep an audience, a community, and a passion in a community that people are going to get pissed off over losing weapons. If you're passionate about something, it typically is because you do care for it. And it's one of those things that's not always easy to wrap your head around, but it is true. So I know some of this is not going to go over well. I mean, the general things about seasons and the world changing all seem pretty cool. Faction earlier is kind of a bummer, but again, the weapons I know is the big controversial topic. As I said, we're going to be talking about this on the last word this evening. 10:30 p.m. Archives will be up. Audio will be up later. If you guys think people would like this in audio form, this discussion that I just got done doing, let me know in the comments below and I can put the audio up there as well, because that's mostly what this is an audio chat. So thank you guys. If you enjoyed this, drop a like below. If you have comments about any of this stuff, leave a comment below. I would love to see everybody's thoughts about what potentially the future of Destiny looks like. You guys can find me on Twitter. Follow me there. Ebontis on Twitch. You guys can follow, check out the podcast, any of my streams. And of course, right here, subscribe to the channel. The support from you guys has been awesome, so thank you very much. I look forward to what the future holds. You guys rock. I'll see you soon. Have a good one.